Ham Radio 2.0 Sunday night live stream. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to get started here in just a minute. Happy Sunday. And it is 7:01 in Texas, so good evening to everyone. And thank you for tuning in tonight. Sunday night live stream, we're going to be talking about FlexRadio Smartlink tonight, something that I really enjoy and something that makes our connection in Costa Rica possible when the internet is up, which is not FlexRadio's fault that the internet in Costa Rica goes down a lot. Just want to make that clear. But yeah, we have a really cool setup down there when it's online. So yes, Larry and Ted are talking about 10 meters has been open all day. I was looking at that right before the stream. 20 meter FT8 right now is literally red on the band scope, red on the waterfall. Usually it's like green, maybe yellow, maybe some orange in there with strong signals every now and then. It is freaking red right now, so that means really strong. So it's really fun looking. So we're going to take some look at that. Special shout out to the YouTube channel members out there. I see AC3IK out there, ZL1HOG, Ham Radio Crusaders in the house. Who else is out there? Let's see. I saw Smoke Signals RF. Thank you, Don. KR5EEE Randall, one of my all-star buddies. See KB8DXN. So thank you for being out there today. Thank you for your support of the channel. Speaking of winning, Gray Manpoda, since you're asking, what did I win? You didn't win anything. You just you get the honor of being here tonight. So how's that? But here's the thing. So I made this announcement a week or two ago. Last week, maybe, something like that. I've got roughly about 18,000 people on my email list. It was about 17.5 last week, and I've been sending out tweets about it on Twitter or X.com, whatever the heck they're calling it now, and on Facebook and on Instagram and these places. And I've gained a few subscribers over the last 2 or 3. Thank you, Frank. 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. Frank just shared the link in the chat. When I get to 20,000 email subscribers, we're going to do a giveaway of an HF radio. Maybe a Flex radio, but probably not. Probably something a little bit less expensive than a Flex radio. But we'll see. Maybe. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. But it will be a giveaway of an HF radio once I get to 20,000, and it will be given away to one of the 20,000 email subscribers. So you have to be subscribed to that email list that the Frank just shared the link to in the chat. So you have to be subscribed there. Once we reach 20,000, we're going to announce what it is and a date for it and whatnot and blah, 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 and go from there. So, yeah, building my email list that way. Thank you for those of you who have subscribed. And I hope I don't bug you too much. I sent out an email earlier today about this stream tonight with some discounts and coupons on it. And I try to send usually 2 a week. One before my Sunday live stream and then one other during the week. Sometimes on Wednesday if I live stream, or sometimes on Friday if I have sales and coupons that I've heard about, that kind of thing. So, yeah. So that's what's going on there. All right, let's go ahead and kick this off real quick because I've got a couple of guys in the chat here that I know want to talk to you guys. So let us bring that over and that over. Good evening, Michael and Eric from Flex Radio. How are you guys doing tonight?
Wonderful, Eric.
Go ahead. I mean, Michael, you go first. You've been on the show before.
I've been on the show before.
Yeah.
Just great for Sunday night. I didn't know you did Sunday night shows, but thanks for having us. And a little bit short notice. A good thing I read my emails yesterday, so this will be great.
Yeah, we had traded some emails earlier in the week about something unrelated. And then he said, hey, we want to talk about Smartlink. And I'm like, that's great. But I didn't see that email till I think it was late Friday night, but I was out on Friday. and or I was driving home from an event on Friday. I think I emailed you either late Friday night or Saturday morning. I don't remember which one it was. And I was like, I know it's short notice, but you want to talk about it like tomorrow? So thanks for being here, guys. Eric, what's going on with you, man? How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. Things are good.
So yeah, people are going to want to know. Frank's already talked about this behind the scenes, but what's in your background? Because people are going to wonder about that.
Well, this is just a Zoom background, so it's just generated much conversation, but
I imagine
it's just a fun background.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for being here tonight. Appreciate you guys
Sure.
taking the time out tonight to talk about Flex Radio. So, Frank, I'll go ahead and let you give you 30 seconds or so. How are you?
I'm doing all right, y'all. What's going on? Howdy to all the tankers out there in the chat. I've said hello to many of y'all already. Also, I'm kind of getting close to 4,000 subscribers. That's pretty awesome, right?
That's pretty cool. Yeah, for sure.
I'm
For
getting
sure.
there. I'll go ahead and just drop the link in there if y'all want to help me out and go ahead and subscribe to Tank Radio. That would be amazing. And I think that's mostly going on for me tonight.
Good. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing the links in the chat. Frank is going to be watching the chat for questions. We've got a number of questions we're going to go over with Michael and Eric from Flex. So, yeah, that's kind of a talk that I think they've done before, given it Dayton in the past, and we're going to talk about that with them tonight. But if questions come up during the chat, you guys feel free to pop them in there. So, all about Smartlink. So for those who don't know, I'm going to give you my definition of Smartlink, because I've talked about this on the show before, and I've done videos about it before. Smartlink is basically a way to connect to your Flex Radio remotely. It's very easy to connect to your Flex Radio with the Smart SDR software when you're on a local area network. In other words, plugged into your home network, or if you have one running at your EOC, plugged into your EOC network via Wi-Fi, via Ethernet. Very easy to connect to any radio. You just open Smart SDR, and it automatically finds any Flex Radio equipment that's on your local area network. But if you leave and go elsewhere, how do you connect to it? And the answer to that is Smartlink. So we're going to talk about some Smartlink stuff tonight. And Michael, I'll go ahead and let you take it, because you're the one who sent me this list of questions, which I really do appreciate. And we'll read them as we go. But I know that you've done some of this before, so please feel free to kick us off.
Okay, and what was the first question? Because I don't have it open.
Okay, that's all right. I've got it right here. Okay, so the first question was, can you provide an overview of what Smartlink is and how it benefits Flex Radio users, which I did in my words, but I'd like to hear what your words are. So, yeah.
No problem. I think you did the executive summary on that really wonderfully. Smartlink is a tool that was developed by Flex Radio well, let's start with the problem. The problem was using HF or any radio remotely, but since we're an HF radio company, from 160 through to 6 meters, or even some transverter work, how do you connect to that radio if it's across the street or half a world away? And okay, so all the network geeky guys up there go, no problem, I got this fixed. We'll just do a VPN. We'll do some port forwards. We'll have 9DNS and all this stuff going to work great. But that's not most ham operators today. So Eric and Steve and the team, almost 10 years ago, I guess now, Eric came up with Smartlink. It was a vision to how can we make this work so it's easy for any ham operator, and its performance is good, and meaning that we're not going through servers in the middle all the time, and how do we set it up and make it secure and safe? Because the last thing that we joke about is we don't want to read in the top, QST today that my radio got hacked by some guy in some other country, and so that's why we have a lot of security among it. But you don't need to worry about that. We do, and so the Smartlink is the tool we use today to connect remotely. Now, I've been operating remote since 2005, and in the Flex world, since they released this in version 2 of Smart SDR, and never looked back. And shy of a few hiccups now and then, it generally just works. And it's as good as the internet you're hooked up to, as you just said, Jason, right? So
right.
In your Costa Rica station, and I run a full contest station using the Smartlink tool. An SO2R contest station, single operator 2 radio, using Smartlink, and the goal was to make it just make it easy to do, which I know I've said a couple of times, and So that's what it is. If you didn't see my talk at Dayton, where I discuss how different vendors do remote, then I go into detail on each ICOM, Kenwood, Yaesu, Elecraft, and ways that you can, and FlexRadio, of course, connect remotely. Now, that didn't get published by the Dayton team, so I will re-record it and get it out. And Jason, you're welcome to share it on your list when I get it recorded. And I try to make that vendor agnostic. It ends up being a little Flex favored, but the facts go that way anyway. So anyway, but keep in mind, I say this all the time. I'm a ham operator first. They just let me come to work every day and play with this stuff. So well, so I'm on the air a lot. And, Eric, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you covered it well. I think one key part about it that the users really appreciate is the fact that once you're logged in on Smartlink, it really operates very similarly than what you do locally. So it's the operation is full featured, and it's just easy to use because you're familiar with that interface already.
Right, and it's a peer-to-peer connection. There's no server in the middle, right? So it's as fast as you can make it. And that's, if you're not familiar with that term, just file that one on the back of your head. So
it's simplex.
It's simplex.
People should be familiar with the term simplex, not having to go through a cell tower. So, yeah, peer-to-peer basically means simplex over the network. So, good. Okay. Well, question number... Go ahead.
There's one more thing. So that means I take the client, the part I use, whether it's a Maestro, a PC, a Mac, an iPhone, is directly connected to the to my radio. And for geeks out there, I sit at home. My turnaround time is about 30 milliseconds. Round trip time. That's okay, which is pretty normal. Yeah, there's some hiccups in there, but it's pretty fast. Gamers would be happy. Next question.
Yeah, well, the second question kind of, I mean, you kind of answered already. What inspired the development of Smartlink, and how has it evolved since its inception? So maybe the second part, how has it evolved since it was first released? That's a probably good one.
I'll defer to Eric on that one. By the way, Eric's in VP. You're a founding member of FlexRadio, and he's VP in software, right? Is that?
That is all accurate.
Okay, go ahead, Eric. I'll let you answer the next one.
Good.
Yeah, how has it developed over time? Honestly, it really hasn't changed much since its inception. I look back today to get some dates, and I think we released version 2 back in 2017. And the basic infrastructure there has not changed since we launched it. So there have been some minor tweaks here and there, but no major changes. So yeah, architecturally fairly sound.
Okay, good. Well, that's good. I mean, yeah, it basically. So I have said for a long time, I was like, it's the cool thing about, one of the cool things about FlexRadio is that if you were to go in with a group of hams, a club, or just get 2 or 3 or 4 friends together, something like that, and pick the guy who's got the best home QTH and the best tower setup and best antenna setup at home, and the 3 or 4 of you go in and buy a radio together, 6600 preferred, I think, but buy a radio together, pull your money in, buy a radio together. You can go download SmartSDR for free. SmartSDR for Windows is free. You can go download it right now, install it on your computer for free. There's no licensing. If you don't have anything to connect to, it's not going to do much for you. But if you guys went in, if like a ham radio club or something went in and they pulled their money, bought a radio, then all of you could connect to it from your home QTH or from your iPad or whatever. The iPad software is made by, help me with the guy's name.
Marcus, DLA-MRE.
Right, Marcus.
Yeah.
And he makes a Mac OS software and an iOS software, and he does a really good job. But he charges for that because the Open API, which we'll talk about here in a second. But anybody can go download SmartSDR for Windows for free and install it and work from home. And Smartlink is built into that system, and is also free. It doesn't. There's no charge for any of the Windows software that FlexRadio makes. So I've always thought that was a really cool system to be able to do that, because it's perfect for ham radio clubs and whatnot.
There isn't a week goes by that we don't hear about somebody's moving into an apartment, but his buddy's lending him his radio, or even as we get older, where they've taken an iPad into somebody who's a shut-in, and let him get back on the air when he never thought he could again. that sort of thing. And a lot of that's happening, right? And
Yeah.
it's a bunch of other cool things, like you can use it for teaching and mentoring, but the
Right.
sharing, can you imagine the look on some guy's face when he here's his little cronies on 80 meters on a Sunday night, has a whole new list of meds he can talk about.
Right. Yeah. They can go in there and talk about their hospice care and
Yeah.
colonoscopies and whatever. So yeah,
Oh,
good
dear.
deal. Oh boy, 80. You said 80 meters. I didn't bring that up. You did. So yeah, okay, good deal. Yeah, but yeah, FlexRadio, Smart SDR, and Smartlink all built into the whole system. So you touched on this a minute ago, Michael, but security is a significant concern for remote access. And how does Smartlink ensure the security of users and radio data?
So I'm going to defer that to Eric. I'm going to use 3 letters, TLS, which is an industry standard technology. You use it on your bank cards and everything else. But Eric, I'm sure that was an early conversation, right?
Yeah,
about how to do it.
Obviously, security is important in any transactions like this, but we really wanted to ensure that people would be able to trust that if we made their radio available to them remotely and made that easy, that it wasn't going to be something they'd have to worry about uh, that other people would be able to access inappropriately. So we've used all of the standard, industry standard protocols. So TLS is used in the connection process to the server. The server actually acts, and we covered this briefly before, but it acts as a broker. So the Smartlink service sits in the middle. You go talk to the service, and it kind of arbitrates the connection between the client and the radio, and then it gets out of the way. And that connection to the radio at that point with the TLS connection is about as secure as you can be on the internet today. So
somebody's asking what is it, TLS version 1.3?
Yes.
Okay. Good. I don't know about versions, but that was a question in the chat, so good. Okay, perfect. Awesome. Okay, so this one, number 4, is a question that was a really good question, but this is a video that I put on the channel like 3 or 4 years ago. So the answer to this question is in a video that I already made, but we'll talk about it tonight. I got a lot more subscribers than I had back then, so a lot of people probably haven't seen this video. But could you walk us through the process of setting up Smartlink for remote operation, especially for users who might not have extensive networking knowledge?
Right. Well, the first thing you'll do is, you need your radio and you're going to set it up. And if you're new to it, we actually tell people who are building a remote system to play with it at home first and then take it to the remote. And if you've ever run a repeater in your lifetime, you know exactly what I mean. You want to save those trips to the remote site. I know in your case, Jason, you got to jump on an airplane, but so you'll set it up and the LAN in the ham shack, and Dan N7HQ, who works with us, has a great video on the LAN in the ham shack, has become quite a tool in the ham radio world today. It used to be the antennas were a big deal. Well, computers and LAN and radio, now they're all part of the same big deal. And so you unbox the radio, you hook up an antenna, you plug in 12 volts, you hook it up to the plug a LAN cable into the back of it and download the software and start it up. And then, like you said, it'll find the radio and away you go. But Smartlink requires a couple of extra steps. You need to build, and we've got this documented in sadly, I know exactly which section of the manual is, which is section 9. But it's very, very cool how they did it. You come up with a username and a password and register yourself, just like an email address type of thing. And then a couple of more steps. It will automatically send a couple of commands to your router using universal plug and play. Okay, I can hear the other network guys going, universal plug and play is evil. It could be evil, but it's never been really an issue in this point. But
I was about to say I was going to watch the comments come in on that one.
Yeah.
For you people, you can do this manually and set up your own ports and whatever. So, but we won't go there. But for most people, the typical home network, they've got somebody's router and some Wi-Fi and stuff. It should just work right out of the box. Smartlink is a whole other issue, or Smartlink, Starlink.
Starlink, yes.
We won't go there because of a whole different type of technology, but for traditional cable, fiber, DSL internet, it generally just works as required.
I haven't tried it on my Starlink yet. Is there a known issue with that?
you better buy the business version. You need they use something called carrier grade NAT, and essentially
I've
you're
heard of
double
that.
natted without going into
Okay.
details.
Okay.
But
Okay.
so you've created a user ID, login. The radio sends a couple of commands called universal plug and play commands to the router to open 2 ports, and back to itself, the radio. And then also it sends that same information to the Smartlink server and says, hey, Mike, VA3MW, this is his outside WAN address, and here's the 2 ports he's using. And we just file that in, as Eric said, in a broker or like a telephone book lookup. And when I log in remotely now, well, actually one more step to do, then to make sure you actually own the radio, you have to do one more step, and it says hit the push to talk. See, it's the first time you have to be right beside the radio. Okay. And the same thing to deregister, you have to hit the push to talk, because God forbid we'd have somebody sort of log into Jason's radio and steal it away, right? So you hit the push to talk or the CW key, MOX, or some physical button you have to push, and then you're done. So now you take, first thing you do is you're going to go to Starbucks or McDonald's with your iPad and see if you can call home. And if it works, great. And if not, it could be a couple of things, but this is where we have support staff that work for us that you can call. They're the best at the world at this stuff, and we'll help you with it as well. I mean, our support guys are pretty good, and also ham operators and on the air all the time as well. So I think, again, I'm going to defer to Eric, because I know Eric's my perfectionist in this. Did I miss anything obvious?
No, I think the only thing I would mention is that the first thing they would usually direct you to from support would be there's a built-in network test.
Oh, right, the network test.
It'll kind of give you a pass-fail. Are you good to go? Or is there some kind of a port forward or something that needs to be addressed? And sometimes that can be helpful to address then when you're setting it up, as opposed to when you're out and about and trying to connect.
Right. Yeah, you do want to do the green LED. Well, it's not really an LED. It's just a dot on a screen. But
since we're talking about kind of connections and things you need to kind of have here, there's a question from the chat from Jason. Will this work over V6? IPv6?
IPv6.
It really depends. So the short answer is the radio today does not support IPv6. But it still works in some circumstances when a cell phone network, say, is operating on IPv6, depending on how they've implemented their fallback to IPv4. So it's kind of your mileage may vary. I know in Europe, there are some places where IPv6 is very prevalent. They don't have as much of the fallback infrastructure that we have over here, because they've been very successful in their rollout, and they've had more trouble in those situations. But yeah, so the short answer is it really depends on how they've implemented things. And long term, we know we'll need to support IPv6 all the way to the radio, and that will address that issue long term.
Thank you. From Digital Rancher, how much bandwidth do you need for a session if you want good audio quality?
That's a good question. It depends, but if you're thrifty, and we have ways to make it thrifty, you can easily get down to about, and this is the edge, about 250 to 300 kilobits. But what consumes a lot of the bandwidth, that's an upstream, by the way. So you're now a server, so you're sending data out, and you can drive that all the way up well over a meg to a meg and a half, but because your screen is a waterfall and a pan adapter, if you change those refresh rates and make them, instead of once a second to, I don't know, what's the highest number, 16 frames a second, it's a movie, right? It just consumes a lot more data. So when I first started remote operating here, I only had 1 meg upload. I'm in a rural area, and so the first thing I had to do was get in or if you had, any change, was to slide those rates and frames per second numbers all the way to 0, which wasn't bad, even if the waterfall only updated once or twice a second. Still an amazing amount of information. So those things will vary your upstream load. But going down to 0 drops it down actually almost sub 250 kilobits. So
Okay.
And
It's
we've
worth
measured
noting
that.
there. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say we have an option to, it's called low bandwidth connection that kind of defaults so it defaults to a single PAN adapter, single display, and lower frame rates to kind of help that. Because one thing we noticed was if people were used to operating in a higher speed environment and then they tried to connect and there were, 2 or more PAN adapters open and the connection couldn't handle it, sometimes it would time out before they could even get in to go change those settings. So some people have more success connecting with that low bandwidth option, and then you can kind of tailor it the way you want it.
I had success with the low bandwidth. Mostly I was just listening, but I've carried, and I haven't done this in a while, but I've carried my Maestro in my truck, connected through my hotspot on my phone and connected back to the radio right behind me here, just to kind of like listen to nets or listen for someone.
Just because you can.
Just because I can. Yeah. When I first got the Maestro, that's exactly why I did it. I was like, why not? My antenna at home is a heck of a lot taller than the one I had on the truck at the time. So
we have a lot of customers that drive for a living, and they either use an iPad, and if they're driving a big truck, but exactly what you said, they have room to put the Maestro on a mount right there, and they love it.
Right. Yeah. It's good. Works well.
Since you said iPad, what platforms is this available other than a computer? Is it completely open on all computer platforms, or is this also a mobile solution?
Okay, insert Michael's speech about the open API right here. So go.
So right now it's Windows, iOS, and Mac. So the next question is, what about Android and what about Linux and I don't know, what about a Chromebook?
That was asked by Ted, and that's what I was kind of steering into.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the lecture I give, and then but I think Eric's probably in alignment with this. Generally, we have an open application programming interface, and with the iOS, we've had several with Apple. We have several people. Marcus and another guy, Don V3VRW, have both developed applications in the Apple environment, totally on their own. We have reached out, rattled chains, asked people in the Android and Linux world going, hey, why don't you build a client? And I'm going to be blunt, we're not going to do it. It's not on the roadmap now. Who knows what 5 years might bring, but if you want it today, you'll have to do it yourself. Happy to help you. And Eric gets a lot of those emails, how do I do this? And I just sort of am tongue-in-cheek saying, I don't think there's any ham operators who are Linux programmers that are on HS that have just gotten to the point where they want to write their own for Linux or, Chromebook for that matter. I'm going to defer again to Eric, but that's we'd love them, right? We'd love someone to start bringing that up, Eric.
Yeah, that's accurate. We would be happy to help support some folks that want to run with that project. The email address to reach out to is devhelp@flexradio.com. We'd be happy to help anybody that wants to head down that road.
And Anna on the Flex Radio YouTube channel is a great video about how to communicate with the radio, how to start building the APR, just sending it plain. You just telnet into the radio and you type in a command and it says, oh, there's the health of the radio, and it comes back in English. And this is why guys like a number of us have done such great things with Node-RED, because we're not programmers at all, but we can hack something together and we've come up with usable solutions type of thing using Node-RED. And because a lot of ham operators are logical enough thinkers to figure out how that worked, and that's all my station control is now. And but Dev helps great. I know, like I said, Eric and somebody always answers, and it's easy to even, if you're a Wireshark person, you can go stick Wireshark on the channel. Okay, if I turn the VFO, what happens? Well, there's the command, and here's everything coming back. And Eric, I'm going to defer since we're here. Am I correct in saying sort of the PAN adapter waterfall is nothing more than a movie? We're sending frames of pictures type of thing?
Yeah, that's accurate. So it's, how often do you want to send them? And there's also the aspect of how much data are you sending? So if you're on a 4K screen and you make it full screen, we do our best to give you full resolution of the PAN adapter and waterfall data. That obviously takes more bandwidth than if you shrink that down to, maybe 1,000 pixels wide or something like that. So all that's proportional. But yeah, you can still even, I think our default is something like 15 frames. And I think you can go up to, I don't know, I think it's 40 or 50 frames per second. But you can still get very reasonable data from the band at much lower frame rates if, bandwidth is a concern.
And
By the way,
just to clarify, you're saying if you sift the traffic between the wireless or not wireless, well, it is a wireless or there's an Ethernet port on the Flex head and to the Flex radio, you can see all the commands and answers, the back and forth in the clear.
Yes. So I should qualify when you're connected on SmartLink because the connection is through TLS, it's encrypted. So that makes it tougher. But when you're local on the local area network, you can look at that. And like Mike said, it's, human readable. It's very plain text. It's easy to debug and it's easy to kind of gather what's going on based on the TCP traffic going back and forth to the radio from the client.
Good. Yeah, Kyle appeared in the chat when we started talking about Node-RED.
Yeah.
So, all right. So that's all really good information. I think it's important to say that FlexRadio writes SmartSDR for Windows. Everything else that's available now was written by someone in the customer community. So like the Mac OS and the iOS. So someone needs to write the Android. Now, I'm sort of somewhat kind of a little bit sort of working on that on the back end with someone, which you guys know who it is. But once we get operating privileges in Mexico, then it's possible I'm going to take my radio down there and leave it for him to do that because he wants to do that. So that's the awesome goal right now. Yeah, that's the goal. It gives me an excuse to buy a 6600 for here, so I'll take my 6400 down there. But I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, so hopefully Android client will be coming soon. But yeah, that's it. Just no one in the community's written one yet, so that's why. Okay, so this kind of leads into this. What types of FlexRadio radios and software versions are compatible with SmartLink, and are there any hardware requirements for users?
So all of 6000 series, so 6300, 6400, 65, 66, 67.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just put this in I'm going to put the sales hat on for a minute. You buy a 6300, 65, 67, all came out about 2012, 2013. If you were to find a used one and buy one of those, you know what you have? You still have a brand new radio today.
Brand new radio, that's right.
And the ham operator in me is saying, you can't do that with a radio I bought 10 years ago. When you bought it, it's sort of stuck in time. Mm-hmm. So they're very future-proof. And people call me all the time and I say, if you're a budget person and trying to put in a radio, try to find a used remotely, try to find a used 6300 and stick it there, and you'll be happy. It'll be great. It'll work wonderful. So your question is, and then which version of software? It was released in version 2.1, but
something like
yeah, something like that. No, see, now I can't remember off the top of my head. We're up to on version 2.10.1 on the version 2 software, and on version 3 it's 3.5.9. And if you buy a new radio today or even a pre-loved radio from us, you get version 3. You can still run version 2 if you want to. Mm-hmm. And if you're at version 2 and decide you want to upgrade for the features that are in version 3, then it's $199. Ultimately, there'll be a version 4. What price that'll be, who knows? Depends what comes in it. But it's still a lot cheaper than. Do you remember the ICOM 756 Pro 1, Pro 2, Pro 3? Ask me how many new one of those I bought. Each one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that means just pretty much anything available today. Now the 1500, 3000, 5000, or it's the first one, which was the 1000. No, you can make it. You're really creative. You could probably use them remotely, but it's not the same type of thing. So we won't even go there.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything 6000 with the 6000 in the front.
6000. Yep.
Yeah. 6000 series. So that's great. Cool.
And they're not as expensive as you think. I think a used 6300, used market is somewhere south of $1,500.
Yeah, I believe that's right. I mean, you get Yahoos on there that want $1,200 for a used IC 7000, so you're gonna find that for flexes. But yeah, you can find them for reasonable prices if you just keep an eye out. Hamfests, swap forums at QRZ. So yeah, I've seen them for 12 to 14, something like that, for 6,300.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good. Cool. Okay, so this one might be a little bit. This might be a rabbit hole, but we'll go ahead and put this. This was question number 6 on your list, Mike. Can you share some success stories or examples of how Smartlink has improved the remote operating experience for ham radio enthusiasts? You kind of touched on that in the beginning with people in retirement homes and whatnot, but if you have anything further on that, you'd like to add.
Well, that's certainly a good one. We're also seeing the expeditions that they may or may not use Smartlink, but they use the technology. So we've seen a couple of those even this year with George, and I apologize, I can't remember George's call sign with the rib, where he takes a couple of 6700s and drops them on an island, and they all sit in an air-conditioned boat. Or he had operators all over the world running the last de-expedition he did about 3 weeks ago, type of thing. They enhance things a little bit, but I think I did touch on that. Or exactly as you said, one guy's moving into an apartment, some guy's got a farm, they build their own little club, and they find it works out really well. And with a feature that's in version 3 called multiflex, 2 people can use the same radio at the same time. You sort of argue over the transmitter, but type of thing. So that's really cool. And so, yeah, I think you're getting to the point now where you can, we're not stuck in the basement anymore. Operating or the back 40, or as a kid, I grew up in a crawl space. Although I'll tell you, at 17, I was happy to be in the crawl space where the adults couldn't get in. Yeah, I just think the LAN, like I said, back to the LAN and the ham shack, has just made this so dynamic, and so you can build what works for you and how it works. So.
Good, excellent. Okay. Let's see. All right, so we're going to get into some of the questions now that I've been wanting to talk about. There was an email about this yesterday. In the event of server maintenance or updates, how do I ensure minimal disruption to Smartlink users?
Okay, I'll take that one, and then I think the next one is probably Eric's. But
okay. So
we've had a couple outages over the last 4 years, and they're painful for us, and I guess if people weren't coming and reaching out to us, we wouldn't think it was being used. But of course, it's quite a powerful and useful tool. So we're working on that process and procedure. We have a downtime coming up on Tuesday at 3 Central, 2000 Zulu, where we're going to change over to a brand new Smartlink server. Whole new design and everything, and I'll let Eric talk a bit about that at some point in time. And so expect a downtime of we booked a window of about 4 hours. I think it'll be a lot less, but if you work in IT, it just never goes that way all the time. And so how do we notify people? Well, the last outage, I generally use the two Facebook groups we have, the Flex Radio page and the Flex Radio Enthusiast page. I used X. Do we have to say formerly known as Twitter all the time now?
I just still call it Twitter.
Okay.
Calling it
Twitter.
X sounds dumb. I'm sorry, it just does.
Well, and then I X'd everybody.
There we go.
And the community certainly is always a good place to go. And I was out on vacation, sort of worked out well for me, but Eric had some updates on that about, we're making progress. And sometimes if we don't update it the next day, it means nothing's changed. And doesn't mean we've forgotten about it by any means. And then we found a cool tool in our web server tool. So it actually, if you go to www.flexradio.com now, it'll just pop up right away and say, hey, there's an outage planned. And I'll change that, Thursday, Tuesday, hopefully it'll go away and we won't have to have that again. So that's how we'll notify. And then I found some email groups and I jumped on and told them too. So
I'm on the Flex Radio email list, reflector, whatever you guys call it. And that's how I got notified about it. I got an email directly from Flex Radio saying, "Hey, FYI."
That's right. And that's my big mailing list. That's true. I emailed our worldwide mailing list, and the same thing.
I stay on that because that's an excellent list to be on if you're looking to buy a Flex Radio and you want to wait for the Black Friday or the end of the year sales or the Date and Hamvention sales. That's where you get all that information about sales and whatnot that are going. So
it's the first Monday of the week sale. Sometimes we've always got something we're trying to
or new equipment coming out. When the new Maestro that was announced a few months back, whenever it's finally ready, I'm sure there'll be an email sent out about it.
When we're all done, I'll talk about the Maestro. I saw a couple of things in the chat.
All right, yeah. I've got a Maestro on order, guys, so Michael and I are going to get back on the channel once I get a new Maestro in my hand, so fingers crossed on that one.
I have to make sure I get one.
Right. Hopefully you'll get one for me. I don't know. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. So next, so question number 8: how is Flex Radio dealing with the recent outage? I know that there's been some Smartlink outages. Now, it's important to say that this doesn't keep you from using your radio at home. You can always use your radio at home with your local area network unless you have a power outage or an internet outage yourself. And even if in an internet outage, you could use the M series that has a built-in screen. I guess you could probably use a Maestro with some kind of finagling. But this is for a Smartlink. So recent outages for Smartlink, I think, is what you meant with that question, Mike. So you guys go ahead and take that one.
Eric?
So, I guess back on September 11th, around noon, we started getting reports that people were having trouble connecting to Smartlink. And as we began investigating that, we found that one of the root CA certificates had expired, and this was causing the secure connection via TLS to fail. So if all of that meant nothing to you, that basically just means some of the infrastructure that is required to keep things secure has time stamps on it so that they don't last for forever. That's so that when we say we're Flex Radio and this is our server and that kind of thing, it verifies that. And there are companies upstream from us that we buy a certificate from that they kind of rubber stamp it. They actually go and verify the stuff and say, yes, this is a legit company. Yes, this is where their server is. And they issue certificates that enable all that connection to be secure like that. So one of those certificates in that chain expired, which is relatively unusual for the CA to expire before the cert itself. So that one caught us by surprise. We've had certificate expiration issues in the past, and because of those, we were on a path. In fact, we were in the process of updating the cert when the root CA certificate expired, and we actually stopped that process to go investigate why Smartlink wasn't working. So that enabled us to update the server fairly quickly. The bottom line on that whole issue, we have a number of systems out there now still running older software that failed the connection, and that's really bogging down the older server that's running. As we talked about, the infrastructure has been the same since we launched back in 2017. And as you can imagine, we've sold a few radios since then. So kind of bottom line on all of that was we were in a situation and still are where the existing server is just being overwhelmed.
Okay. So is that what steps are being taken to, are you going to build new bigger robust servers, or put more servers online, or launch a bunch of satellites like Elon Musk is doing? What's the plan?
Probably
there?
not satellites.
Well, hold on. That's your question 9.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. That rolls right into it then.
Yeah. So what have we done to date? So we've done a bunch of optimizations on the existing server to see, how can we keep this going and bring people back online. That was our primary objective initially. And the servers are back online. They have been, they are overloaded, which means at times you're going to have a harder time connecting, which means it takes longer to log in and that kind of thing. We're monitoring that situation closely, and we do what we can to keep those servers going. They're actually a pair of servers, and when one system gets overloaded, we can load balance to the other one, swapping those resources. So
that would cause
helps
users
some.
to have that would cause users to have to relog in, right? Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's a painful process, and we don't want to do that more than we have to. And we're balancing that with the idea that we want people to be able to access their radios remotely. So that's been the situation since we had to release new software to cover that additional certificate that we updated because the old one had expired. But kind of the bottom line is that's kind of a stopgap measure on the existing server. The downtime that we have scheduled for Tuesday is so that we can roll out new server infrastructure. And I use the term server loosely. It's more than just kind of one box now. It's actually a whole infrastructure. It's a server cluster with a load balancer on the front and a database backend. And all of that is a more modern architecture. It's been architected to handle both current and future load. And, we've been testing this out internally for, actually, I should have looked at the dates beforehand, but well over a couple of weeks. And we released it to our alpha team before last weekend, and all that testing's gone really well. So we're confident this is going to be helpful to bring us back to a place where people don't really think about it. It's just when they use Smartlink, they click on it and it works.
I have a question for Eric, because I think question 10, he covered both of it, but Eric, we've had a number of users, and I think he can answer this better than I do, reporting that when Smartlink was not its normal self, they were hearing a little bit more audio artifact, I think because the radio was trying to log in, and can you elaborate a bit on that?
Sure. Yeah, there's several things we've learned in this process, and I expect at some point we'll have a full written report that we'll put out on our website that'll have the whole technical, here's what happened, and things like that. But some of the things that we learned, one, when the certificate went down and we couldn't connect, we couldn't authenticate properly from the radio, several patterns emerged where the radio didn't have good back off algorithms when it was trying to connect. So rather than trying it and then realizing there was a problem and trying it again later, it would just keep trying over and over, kind of thing. And that pattern was true both on the radio and the client. The fact that we hadn't found that to this point is actually a testimony to the uptime for the Smartlink service. But nevertheless, it was a poor design and needs to be improved. We actually have some of those things in process now, but the load balancer on the new server is expected to handle all of the current load, even with those designs in place. So we'll be improving those things in future software as we can come up with them. Those really those kind of issues we don't want to rush through. We want to take our time and test those well so that we can cover all the different corner cases to ensure they're going to work well in all kinds of different situations and not cause other problems. The last thing we want to do is cause more problems addressing others.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, I mean, it sounds like a big growing pains issue, which is actually kind of a good problem to have. I mean, there's a lot of people buying the system and more people logging onto the server. So, I mean, obviously, you still don't want that to happen. But it's not that something has failed. It's just that you guys have a lot of customers, which is a good thing, I think. So, because it's such a great it's a great system. It really is. So
we got a lot of I got a lot of emails.
Yeah.
Many of them were thanks for letting us know. I guess it happens, and I think Frank, you realize what happens with certificates and stuff, right? Because
yeah, I'm smiling in the background. I'm like,
because some employee 10 years ago went. I'm not saying this is what happened here, but
yeah,
it did in a previous company. Some employee said, "Oh, I'll grab that, put it on my credit card," and he's long since left the company. These things happen, and
that's how it bites most companies. And I don't know, that's probably not your case, but I think was it Google? There was a big name company that had a cert expire, and the whole website went down because whoever was managing that left, and no one knew about it.
I think Starlink had the same outage the next night when things start falling apart just after 000 Zulu. And I've watched those guys on Reddit, and then so the next night, which I think was Tuesday, I'm watching Starlink on Reddit, and I'm always watching network things. It's like I'm offline, and I'm wondering if something's similar to that. Of course, they're never going to say.
Right, right.
Well, I did have a question here from the chat. You're talking about capacity and load balancing. Brian's asked, will the new server have additional capacity to handle high use times like during major contest weekends?
So the short answer is yes. Remember too, in our conversation earlier, the server is actually out of the loop once you're connected to the radio. So it's just a broker. But yes, we certainly do see a spike in server use during contest times. And the new infrastructure that we're rolling out is actually scalable. So we'll have the ability to roll it up to a larger more servers in the cluster, a larger cluster, that kind of thing, if we need to do that. And we can automate all of that. So the load balancer that's on the front end is set to handle, many tens of thousands of connections per second. So if we get to a point where we have more than that number of radios that are needing to be connected per second, then we'll have a whole different set of problems.
Okay. We're at the end of our questions, Frank, and I know you've been copying down some questions from the chat, so go ahead.
Yeah, I've been interjecting some of them as they made sense for conversations. But the ones that I did stack up here are from my smoking cigar brother, Don Izzo. Can you please expand on multi-user at the same time option? I'm new to this topic.
Oh, multiflex? Yeah, I can take that. So the radio is, I try to avoid computer terms, but there are some that make sense. The radio is a server. Okay, it's like a web server. It's just a radio server and actually uses some radio technology called VITA49, not that that matters. So this multiflex just allows two users logging into a Raspberry Pi, a type of thing, to use the same information at the same time. The cool thing about a flex radio and software-defined radio, by the way, so I do a lot of club presentations, so I take the word software-defined radio and think of it as just the next phase of manufacturing. We started in radios, they were spark gap, and then there were tubes, and then there were semiconductors and integrated circuits, and things got smaller. And now we're at software-defined, where we do a lot of the work in things like a field programmable gate array. So I'll take a liberty here. When we take RF energy in from the antenna, the first thing we do is we chop it up and make it look like numbers. And we do that at 16 bits. Little SDR dongles do 8 bits. Some other radios do 14. Flex does it at 16. And if you want a number you can probably understand, you can zoom into a signal right down to the single pixel, and it's 4 hertz wide of radio spectrum, roughly. This is pretty, there's a lot of cool data there if you really want to. As well, a flex radio takes the entire radio spectrum, HF radio spectrum, from 30 kilohertz to 54 megahertz 100% of the time, and turns it into these numbers that we can do something with. And to give you an idea of how, what was the number Steve and I came up with? It's about 340 Raspberry Pis, probably Pi 4s, running in parallel. In sort of horsepower, okay? And then the little network inside is moving 3 gigabits of data. Well, that number doesn't sound big. Most of our home networks are 100 megabit, and some of us are fully gig. So 3 gigabit data stream. So this allows 2 users to connect to a radio. And, in theory, you could have more, I guess, if the radio could support them all or had enough energy or power to build all the screens and everything. But so I could be on 80 meters, and you could connect to my radio, and as long as the antenna supports it, you could be on 6 meters. So that's what multiflex is about. Now, if I want to talk on 80, I'll just hit the push to talk switch, and as long as the other guy isn't talking, I can get on the air. Now, he's going to hear me, and his conversation may or may not be muted. and this is a bit more of the power of the radio with the full duplex feature type of thing. But we have a couple of guys that I know personally that two guys get on every day for their AM net on 80 meters in the morning. They use the same radio, and they're even on the same frequency. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
it's, we've got to get our head out of, especially for old fart hams like me, that my radio only deals with 3 kilohertz of signal, and that's all it ever sees at any one given time. Well, those days are over. Okay, we see 54 meg or almost 53 megahertz of bandpass at the same time. And you could zoom out, you know, you can zoom out to 8 megahertz wide on a big screen, and you'll wonder why the noise floor sort of tapers up and down, and it's because of it may be because of the Q of your antenna, the performance of your antenna, where it's good and where it's less good. You know, there's all sorts of cool things you can see. You can watch, if you've ever worked on a waterfall, you can see the Onisod signals, I hope I pronounced that correctly, where they sweep the spectrum. They have a transmitting site here and a big receiving site halfway across the country. They use it for band understanding if the band's open. So you see them coming, and you go, actually, there goes one right now on 20. Just happened to see it run by, and you know, just so that's what multiplex is all about.
Awesome.
Good.
We'll try this question from Mark. Seeing that remote ham radio uses flex radios, would I be able to connect to their different radios via Smartlink, or remote ham radio needs to have Smartlink installed at their different stations?
Excellent question. Remote ham radio is a business, RHR. They sell airtime on HF radios. Another, love it or hate it, I think their model is great. Again, for people getting on the air that now may have, you know, had to give up their, you know, they moved into an apartment. They can afford it. It's been a very good business. They use all our radio equipment, amplifiers and everything. They have their own, actually, Eric can probably answer this better. They don't use Smartlink. They do everything by a web browser or Maestros, Eric, but so you don't need to worry about it. They do their own thing, but they have some very smart people there. They're we've met them. They're great people too. So.
Yeah. I've tried to get them to come on the show a couple times. They're just really busy. So one of these days we'll do a live stream with them. So
if you get Leon here, let me know. I want to hear it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I spoke to him at the QSO Today Ham Expo virtual thing last year, and he seemed interested. We just never have been able to connect since then. So.
That's okay. I have the same problem.
Yeah. Okay.
Him and Ray, but they're great. They're one-on-one. They're wonderful people.
Yeah.
I've talked to Lee more on the air, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't think I have his call sign, but okay. Okay, Frank, what's next?
This is from Unseasoned Ham Radio. What is the Flex preferred solution for Smartlink and on a CG net connection? Yeah.
That's Starlink. He's asking.
It could be Starlink. It could be a couple of other smaller ISPs tend to use it.
We talked about it earlier, and the reason why I asked this question, I don't think we really covered on how to do that, or is the answer is it's not really supported at this time?
It's not really. It's certainly not supported. I have a white paper I wrote on the site. Let me get the link, and I'll just drop it in our chat, and you can paste it through.
I'll happily do that for you.
Sure.
Okay,
sure.
On my description. But essentially, to make it work, you really need to run through an intermediate server to broker all the communications, because you can only call out from each, and it's hard to call on the radio. But there are, like Starlink, you can get.
You mean like a proxy service?
You'd have to run a proxy in the middle, yeah.
Okay.
That'll increase your latency.
I see Eric shaking his head.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
He said the right words.
Yeah.
Believe me, we would love a Starlink solution. There's, you know, that's.
Yeah, that's weird. I haven't actually tried my Maestro and my Starlink yet, so that's disappointing to hear that it's.
No, your Maestro's fine.
Oh, it's okay. So
it's
what's
the radio end?
It's the radio. Oh, when the radio's on Starlink.
I was about to bring that up. Is it which end is on Starlink? Is it the radio, or is it your remote connection using Starlink?
Okay.
Yeah, it's the radio end.
So if you have your radio at home on a normal old ISP, you're fine.
Yeah. Now, there are a lot of guys playing with it. Go to our community.flexradio.com, and search. There's a bunch of guys have had some various success. Some seem to be getting WAN addresses and not on a business account. but and they've got some other ideas as well. So
Interesting. Okay.
I'm trying to find my white paper.
It's worth mentioning here that our engineering team is always thinking about these kind of problems. How do we allow more people to use their radio in more different kinds of situations? And we know we can't cover all of them because there's just too many different kinds. But as some of these things like CGNAT and other kinds of IPv6 is a good example. As technologies become more common, we're looking at different ways of how we can support those. And so we're always thinking about those things. I can't promise that, here's the version that will have a solution that's good for all of that. But we understand there are people that need to use those technologies, and we want to be able to enable that as best we can. So stay tuned.
Yeah. Good. Okay. All right. Frank?
Spamming the chat.
Yeah,
there we go. That message is greater than 200 characters. There we go. One last time.
No, you're fine.
Blah blah blah. Sorry, I was posting that.
Okay.
I have some comments here from Sean or Shane. This is the perfect conversation. I'm looking into this solution. Thank you very much. From Ken, to care for someone by turning on the station. He says, be careful. Someone will turn your station onto a number station.
Yeah.
But they can't.
Yeah. No, they really can't.
Only authorized users. And if you want to turn to a number station, you will.
Right.
Here's kind of a fun couple of questions from Scott. What is a good starter flex radio?
6400. And if you want to learn more about it, just call us. I'll even go to the website, phone us. We actually talk on the phone to customers. If we don't answer the phone, we're just busy. Generally, and we do get some. Man, I'd love to publish some of the voicemails we get. It's like, are you guys out playing cards? And want to say no, we're out working DX actually, but
working DX.
Me and Jason.
Okay, sometimes we are actually at work in DX, but if you do leave a message, it goes to multiple people. We do call you back. So.
Yeah, we could tell you about stories about answering the phone. We worked at BlackBerry. There were some notable ones because we worked the late shift.
It's a great movie. It's a great movie. True. I just watched it the other day.
I haven't seen that yet. I have the book, but I haven't seen that yet. So I'm looking forward to watching that. Cool. Okay. Frank, anything else? I
caught
a couple here. Steven asked. Okay, Mark asked one thing, and that's going to be a longer answer, I think. Steven asked, will Smartlink ever be a charge service when more in the future when more users come on?
Eric?
It's certainly something that we'll have to continue to evaluate. We've enjoyed being able to provide it, with the radio to date. As costs increase and as, for example, in order to do something like what we talked about to solve the carrier grade NAT problem and to be able to transport all of the data between every, client and radio, in that case, you're no longer just a broker. You're actually handling all that traffic. We've priced out something that would handle something like that, and we would have to charge for something like that. So to the degree that we want to offer services like that, those will be things that we'll have to consider in our business plan. There's no current plan to charge for Smartlink today, but as we've seen, things can change in the environment. So I guess that's the wishy-washy answer. But I think that's the best one I can give.
Yeah, and the economics of it, it's actually funded by the retail price of the radio. Money has to come from somewhere, right? So
right. Yep. Okay. Frank, anything else?
I have a comment here from The Happy Ham. It says, I had to say the Flex customer service is bar none top notch. They are always gone above and beyond and are always able to answer questions. So,
Yeah, I saw when he said that. I highlighted it on the video. So, yes, agreed. Agreed.
So I am looking for good comments. I
Okay.
think that's about it here.
Okay.
Do you want me to do my Maestro pitch?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I want to hear that.
Okay, so I'm sure Eric wants to hear it too. So the Maestro C, I guess we're going to call it.
Yeah.
It seems to have stuck. So, always subject to change. Yes, it is alive and working well. We are well into the almost jump into manufacturing a whole pile in a hurry.
Okay.
Type of thing. The target to start shipping the backlog of huge back order list is supposed to be, it's probably going to stretch out a bit, but hopefully by year end.
Okay.
It's supposed to be earlier than that, but hopefully we'll over deliver. But there's always hiccups in either manufacturing or if one knob doesn't show up, you can't ship it, type of thing, right? It takes is a 2-cent piece, right?
Right.
Although the car industry seemed to have gotten around with that. Yeah, we didn't ship you your seat heaters.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to be MFJ, so. I actually got that from Stubbs one time. I was talking to him, and he was faking fun. I was like, "Dude, that's all you."
Anyway, you want to make sure you subscribe to the Flex Insider, which we send out once a month. Go to the webpage. It's www.flexradio.com/insider. Bottom right of the page, I think it's the bottom right of every page. Just drop your email address in there. It's our only mailing list you have, although I do get fancy with some mailings, whether it's worldwide or US only type of thing. And but we've had pictures of the current Maestro at the lab being tested for RFI emissions, which is pretty cool. Sitting by itself on a plastic table in the middle of a big anaerobic chamber with what I think it had power cable, microphone, and a couple of cables just sort of hanging in, and then the guys go to work.
And it's still going to be now, Michael. I think you told me this at Dayton. It might have been as far back as Orlando, actually. But explain, because I already know the answer to this, but I want the audience to hear it. Explain why it took so long with the whole 7 or 8 inch screen thing.
I'll let Eric explain. You were probably closer to it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the bottom line is we're sticklers for. We wanted to deliver a high quality display experience. It's kind of our calling card, right? To have a nice display with the pan adapter and the waterfall. And so there just aren't that many 8 inch screens out there that have the kind of resolution that we wanted to deliver. So being able to find that and source it and know that they're still going to be around, next month when we need another, however many of them,
right.
That was a challenge. And then of course there's we found that screen, and now how does that interface to the compute engine that's on the back end? So figuring all that out and knowing that we can source those reliably and not have to redesign it in 3 months kind of thing is, and then qualifying all of those and getting them certified, all of that. So
right.
Yes, and several rounds of that. We went down that road with a couple of different displays, only to find that either something didn't work or they couldn't be provided at the numbers that we were requesting. And all of that comes to light when you start to say, all right, we need 1,000 of those, and they go, oh well, in that case.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong on this when I say this, but the problem with the Maestro B, I guess, is I was just calling it V2, but was that Dell stopped making that 8 inch tablet. Is that accurate?
That's correct, and that's actually what happened to the Maestro A, the original tablet that it was also manufactured by Dell. Went away, and so we went to a different model, and we're actually not using a tablet this go around. So. We're hoping that'll give us a little bit longer legs, definitely more compute power. So it should be a little beefier and more responsive. So it's going to be a nice product. We're looking forward to getting it out to people.
It's got external HDMI connection. So you
Really?
can hook up an external
Oh.
monitor.
Okay, there you go. There you go.
It's got the battery packs. Shipping batteries is a pain in the butt.
Yes, yeah, the
Okay.
batteries. Oh,
And
so it's going to come with the battery, unlike because the one I have didn't come with the battery.
no,
Okay.
you can order a battery, but you don't have to order it from us. It's an incredibly popular. I think it's generally used in the ENG market. Battery packs, fairly standard battery pack worldwide.
Still USB-A connected battery like the old one was?
No.
No? Okay.
It's its own. And what else was I going to say about that? Yeah, so you can get them anywhere. It runs on 18 or 24 volts, so it doesn't run on 12 volts. But and we're reselling the batteries as a convenience. I'll be blunt: we're not making any money on the batteries because we just have to match. We can't go buy like 20,000 batteries like somebody and say, hey, we get a great price break. So anyway, but their batteries will be available, and it looks pretty cool. We posted, like I said, we posted
another
some
key
pictures.
feature.
Oh, go ahead, Eric.
Sorry, I was just going to point out another key feature of the Maestro C is that you'll be able to charge the battery while it's in the unit. So
thank you.
If you have the Maestro plugged in, So
that was one of the things.
It's going to be a nice feature.
Yeah, that was one of the things I didn't like about my Maestro. I think I have the B. I have the one with the button on the side, the left side as you're looking at it, not the top. I think the first one had it on the top. Mine has it on the side.
That's right.
Yeah, so there was just a USB-A cable coming out of the back of the Maestro, and you could buy like a 10, 15, 20,000 milliamp hour battery pack on Amazon, universal, plug it in, run it almost all day. Great, wonderful. But it wouldn't charge that battery if you were to plug. And also, Maestro also comes with a power cable. And I always thought it was a little bit strange that it wouldn't charge that battery if you're plugged into AC power.
I can tell this story.
Okay.
Because I was an alpha tester when the first A came out, and that was exactly what FlexRadio wanted to do. You'd buy your battery pack, stick it in the back, have it charge while you're using it. Why not? Just like any handheld and everything.
Right.
And I remember Gerald was working on it, and I was on the alpha team, and turns out that not every OEM battery pack behaves the same way when you charge it.
Well, that's
some automatically came on, some automatically didn't. Some would brick the Maestro, right? These are the things you learn when you build the first, I don't know how many 100 and type of thing, and so I was on the other side of that fence going, well, this is nuts, and I'm like you, right? But these are the things you learn when you build anything. How hard can it be? Well, it's pretty hard to build just about anything. And we have friends in the ham radio business, Jason, I know, that are building small ham, backyard garage industry stuff, and it's painful.
Oh, yeah, totally.
But that's the short story on the why you can't charge the battery.
Right. Cool. Okay. All right. Well, anything else from the chat, Frank, or from Eric or Mike, whichever.
Well, from the chat, a couple of people were asking any hints or thoughts on the new features on the radio you want to give out?
No.
Fair enough.
But and the reason we do, actually, let me explain. This is a good time. Let me explain why we do that, or why we don't do that, or why nobody does it anymore. If you're still selling radios and next week, hey, we're going to build a new radio, it's going to be out in time for Dayton, you've just killed your sales.
Yeah.
Elecraft saw that when they announced the K4, it killed the K3 sales, right? So it's hard. We want to brag about it if there is, but there's nothing to say. I'm not pre-announcing anything. I can say the geeky ham in me has seen some cool ideas fly around, but can they come to market? Will they make, they got to make us money, and will you buy it? It's a really cool idea, but are you going to spend $3,000 for this? No. So it doesn't come to market type of idea, right, Eric?
The other piece of that is a lot of times we're working on things in an R&D kind of environment, and even if we have it partially working, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's ready for productization yet. It can be hard to talk about things like that are exciting, and we're excited about them. But if we talk about them and people say, well, why hasn't this been released yet? And it's because there are things, it's one thing to make something work once in a lab. It's another thing to make it work every time reliably for every customer in lots of different situations. So, it's a we like to talk about things once they're really productized and ready for launch so that people can enjoy them.
Yeah, we'd love to tell you some ideas. It's just,
Yeah.
or you get 90% of the way there,
Yeah.
and no worky.
And yeah.
We just have to ask. Even the answer is no. You know,
Yeah.
the people
Yeah,
want
yeah,
it.
totally.
They want the question asked.
Yeah, that's true. Don wants to know when the M model 6400 and 6600 are those going to be upgraded to the new tablets and screens at the same time that the Maestro is being released?
Yeah, I think the delivery time, we're trying to hit about the same thing from a manufacturing perspective. And Eric, same idea, right? New display, a display, not a tablet, and a supporting processor to drive it, right?
Yeah,
that's accurate. And they will share the same kind of back-end architecture. So all the things that we just talked about that will be improvements, other than the battery, of course. You don't need a battery for an M model since it's on your desktop.
Right.
But yeah, all the other compute engine and display kind of stuff will be from the same architecture. So, yeah, coming soon.
Good. Excellent. Well, guys, I really appreciate your time tonight. If anybody else has any last-minute words or comments or anything, feel free. Mike or Eric, either one of you.
You can, any questions,
nothing.
you can, go ahead, Eric, you start.
I was just going to say I appreciate the time. Thanks for having us on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we need to do this a little bit more often. Michael and I, we trade emails back and forth every now and then. We keep saying, hey, we need to get you back on, So I need to be a little bit more proactive about getting you guys back on the show a little bit more, because I use my Flex all the time. I love it. And I'm looking forward to the new Maestro. I need to upgrade. I need to get a 6600 so I can let Bob test the 6400 with the Android stuff, and that's kind of where we want to go from there. But
you let the cat out of the bag.
Everybody knew who I was talking about anyway. Well, Bob and I have been on my it's probably been a year or so ago now, but we've been on the live stream a couple of times talking about doing that. He's like, man, I just need to get a radio down here. I'm like, well, I'm waiting for him to get operating privileges in Mexico so I can go down there and activate some of those parks down there. I'm looking forward to that.
We're getting more and more developers that are grabbing radios. You know, we look what Yuri UT4LW has done from Skimmer, out of Ukraine. I mean, he's blowing it out of the water, and he got a radio finally. So, he was remoted into my stuff from time to time, and this, the infrastructure ecosystem, geeky connecty thing is all good too. And if, by the way, anybody's any questions, said you can call us, or if you're an email person, info@flexradio.com. Comes to me and my boss, or hams@flexradio.com comes to a bunch more of us. But yeah, you can fire off anything. We'll answer you. And we try to, and by the way, I sometimes give answers people don't like, but I'll give you an answer so you're not just waiting. I'm really good about not saying, oh yeah, we're going to do that when we're never going to do it. We get a couple of questions like that, but at least you can then go forward and make a decision.
Right. True. Cool, guys. Well, once again, thank you for your time. Really, really great info coming out of, a lot of times people, I do a lot of videos about all kinds of radios across the entire spectrum of ham radio. And one of the greatest things about ham radio or Flex Radio is that not only are they made in the USA, they're made right here in Texas. So those videos are on the channel too. We go through the whole manufacturing plant. About 4 years ago. I need to get back down there. I was talking to Matt about that at Orlando earlier this year. And I was like, man, I need to get back down there because you guys have done a lot of changes since then. But
so do I.
Yeah, you do too. We should coordinate that. It'd be fun. But yeah, so thank you for your time tonight. Really cool stuff coming out of Flex Radio, and we're going to keep in touch and do some more videos like this upcoming. So yeah, go check out flexradio.com, everybody, and thank you for the time tonight, everybody in the chat, and to both of you guys, and to you too, Frank. So, all right, guys, everyone have a good night. We're gonna sign off, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the premiere that I have tomorrow afternoon. So 73 all.
7-3.
Later.
Bye.